I am happy to introduce Ash Shepard. He works for NTEN as the education director.
Yes.
Yes. NTEN is the member organization for technology professionals in the nonprofit sector, correct?
Yeah.
So anyway, glad that he was able to join us and made it. You saw us kind of buzzing a little bit late, but so as part of this, we kind of flip-flop some sessions. So you'll be with him for a little bit, and I'll let Ash take it from here.
Awesome. All right. So how's that work volume-wise? It's good. This is technology I can do, right? Like move it up or down to adjust the volume. That works well for me. So again, I want to, most of you didn't know, but I want to give credit to the first two presenters. Again, you probably found out roughly 7 o'clock this morning that their time slot had been bumped, and they came in with some enthusiasm and covered and chipped it. So definitely want to give them some credit because I've been in that spot too, and it's feels like your day, right? Maybe you thought you had a longer, eat slower breakfast, and all of a sudden it was like Pop-Tart in the car on your way over. All right. Working a moment ago.
You're the technology guy?
Yeah, but technology treats us all the same. We all get an equal. No, if not,
It's on.
ooh,
I think what?
even the basic button's not even giving it to me. Are we in Zoom looking at the shared screen rather than in the presentation? That might be it. Dun-dun. All right. Always like this, just to make sure. Like, this is my identity check. I look exactly the same glasses. I've been the same glasses for years. So, as Jenny explained, I'm the education director at NTEN. Essentially, we are a nonprofit, and we help other nonprofits learn how to use technology to be more efficient and effective. And whatever it is, the magic you do, you're creating in the world. That's what we help you get there. So we do it through in-person stuff, online community space, big annual conference that we do, which normally travels around the country, but it will actually be in Portland next year. So I'd like to say a short drive across the bridge, but we all know there's no short drives in Portland at this point, right? So it's at least closer than Austin or DC, right? It's closer. So a little bit about me. So I've spent about 11 years now working specifically in nonprofit technology. So for a while, I worked at nonprofits. I did consulting with other nonprofits on websites, social media, CRM. Near the end, I was just doing a lot of project management of those sort of things. And then I joined NTEN about 3.5 years ago and got back to my happy place, which is program development. But as you can see, so 20 plus years in nonprofit space, so I've done a lot of things. A decade in social work, so I've done a lot of sort of roles and paths along the way. So I'm bringing that perspective. So whatever pain you're feeling or whatever questions come up, I can probably relate. Maybe do a few high fives as we go through the day here. So yeah, that's just a little bit about me, so you know who I am, where I'm coming from, and my sort of lens that I'm sharing information from. How about anyone else here? Anyone else have to ever work on a project before? Right? Hey, so I'm not the only one in the room that's got some experience, right? So while I got some set stuff I'm hoping to share and build some skills, just know the people in the room are also a huge asset. And part of how I'm going to try and do this session and the next session is trying to help highlight and bring that stuff out as well, right? I know the Community Foundation has a real heavy focus, but even for us at NTEN, we function on 3 pillars: learn, connect, and change. And they're all equal. We want you to learn some great stuff, but it's just as valuable to connect with people in the community and the space and also share your resources back. And that's how you actually get to the change part. Hopefully you get a sense of that as we go through the sessions today. So what's in it for me? This is always important to ask, right? You're sharing some time with me. I respect that. I know we all got some limited resources. I know time is probably your most limited. So the fact that you're sharing it with me today is greatly appreciated. So I want to make sure out of the gate, this is where we're starting from, right? Because anybody ever go to a training and then a day later you're like, oh, I guess it's good. I don't really, can't remember what it was about. But I guess there were some yummy bagels and some juice. So the first thing we'll do in both sessions is really try and root things sort of in your context, right? I have information. You're going to get the most out of this if you get the answers to the questions you came to the way. So I want you to take a second here and I want you to think, what is it about project management that's so challenging for you that you're hoping today can help? I'm perfectly happy with the awkward silence because actually it's important to let people think for a moment and then let it come out. That being said, I don't want to hear me talk for the next couple of hours, so we'll take volunteers, or I'm happy to just pluck people. But plopping, I forget what your technical term was earlier. I'm not going to plop, but I will pluck people out of the crowd, right?
Getting people involved.
Getting people involved, okay? So not trying to do the annoying 4-year-old mimic thing, but for those in the online space, I'm just going to try and repeat so we don't have these mic running delays, right? So when you hear me repeat, you maybe understand why.
What's new this year and how do I integrate it into what we did last year?
Excellent. So what's new this year? So some of that's about platform type questions, but some of it, again, I've been here 4 years. Some of us have been here together a couple of years in a row, right? So how are we building this, the content, but the platform and the tactics on top of where you're coming from? To just keep moving you forward, right? Anyone else? What's that again? It's like, this thing's more painful than it should be. You got to help me, Ash, or you got to pay for your bagel because you didn't earn it.
Managing multiple projects, especially when you're a small organization.
Managing multiple projects, a small, there, hey, can we get a, yeah, that sounds real familiar.
Best practices on streamlining the whole process. I mean, this is my first time involved in this. There's a lot of information, so just learning how the best way to move it forward as quickly as possible.
The best way to streamline. And we'll definitely talk about some of that, but there's probably a few tips in the room too. We'll take one more here.
Breaking up major project tasks into smaller chunks so individuals are willing to take them on.
Breaking up large projects into smaller tasks so individuals are willing. So we'll see some of that. There's some human nature in there. There's only so much of the willing I can do, but again, strategies and tactics around buy-in and managing so that things aren't so daunting, so they seem achievable and people, I'll take that on. As opposed to the, like I call it our organization, right? Sometimes things just get lobbed over the fence, right? Between teams and departments. Like, I don't want to do that. Chuck it over to that's Team M&E. They'll deal with that, right? And it creates all kinds of nightmares. So excellent. So definitely some of these things I already know we're going to be hitting on. But again, like if we're cruising through and some of your questions aren't getting answered, like there's definitely space to talk. Just ask them. And obviously I'll repeat it in the mic, right? And we'll get going. Some of the other things, right? We're nonprofits. We love our acronyms in particular. One of the things I want to develop is an acronym bingo card that I can just bring along for all my trainings. But also, you know, we are talking about technology. So again, information is only useful if you know what I'm talking about. So if someone goes, oh, that's in particular for a P2P campaign. And you're like, is that for diabetes? I'm not sure what that is. Like, just stop. There's lots of pens, right? You could chuck a couple of pens my way and make me stop. But just make sure we unpack terms or things like that, both from me, but also from your peers. Again, if we get going and we get warmed up, all of a sudden we start dropping jargon and terms. And it's just important that we all feel comfortable and responsible to stop those things. Make sure we all understand. Just a tiny bit of a roadmap. So again, like you got a question, you can kind of see maybe where it falls. Or if it's not falling, then you can start strategizing now where you're going to sneak that in. Make sure you get what you came for. So a little bit of this setting your context, right? It's real quick, real simple. There's a little bit of a before. I just want to know, and I want to hear people say out loud, like, why are you participating in Give More 24?
Money.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'd say it's in the pop quiz, right? We can own a certain part of it, right? Like, you need to get some money, right? But getting some matched money where someone covers my processing fees, that's pretty sweet.
Plus they're reputable on a local level.
Right? There's some reputation. There's some sort of pulling validity by being associated with certain events and organizations, right? To be honest, they're doing the same off a lot of you too, right? By having you participate, they get a ride on your reputations in the community as well. It's a fair exchange. It can go both ways. Who else? Who else here has, and again, there may be other reasons. I know the top reason probably is like we need some money.
Increase awareness.
Increase awareness.
Networking.
Networking, right? So we're getting some of that today.
Outreach.
Outreach, right?
You know, we may not be able to raise enough money, but we are outreach and we can have dollars for people from us through much more than that's money.
Some of it's the long play, right? Maybe we make this amount of money or not this time, but you never know where a year from now someone goes, oh, I saw you at the Give More 24 event, and now I see you again, and now we're at our third oh, maybe tell me a little more. Maybe I will give a little donation. Let's start financially dating now that we've seen each other around, shall we? Yeah?
Education.
Education? Education in what sense? That you're trying to educate the community or your own education and capacity building as an organization?
So we work with people living with AIDS.
Uh-huh.
Community needs to know about AIDS and they don't. Too many young people have no idea. They think there's a cure. So having an opportunity to share our message to solicit contributions, because as they said, the bottom line is money, helps us to educate the public on how they can stay safe.
Yeah, so education about your current community, the realities, debunking some myths about sort of your mission focus area that maybe creates challenges, right? Why would I donate? I thought we cured AIDS in the 90s, right? It's like, no, that's not quite the reality.
Just to generate enthusiasm for doing good. It's a good feeling to see that there's all these people working for the welfare of the community. To raise that kind of feel-good feeling in the community.
It's amazing how feeling good generates more feeling good and generates momentum. And again, events like this, the simple fact that you're sort of part of that can be really good, especially at a time where, like, we call it what it is. There's a lot of news, there's a lot of events that are pretty soul crushing on a pretty regular basis, right? So being a part of something that's positive, but creating an avenue where other people can be a part of that and see themselves in it. I mean, it's not just great for our missions, like this is good for our communities and for our own self-well-being, right? I like doing good, but it's a scale and sometimes the other end feels heavy. So to keep us from burning out, it can be nice to hang out with other people also working hard and facing challenges. So awesome. I think those are a lot of great ones. Here's something else I want us to think about though at the beginning of the context, and this was one of the questions, right? You're new to this. How do we streamline? So one of the other things I want you to think about, right? I'm going to throw a bunch of stuff at you today, right? I don't want you to go home and do every single one of them because it would be crazy, right? I'm like you, I don't have time to do all these things. So you're going to pick a few things that you're definitely going to try out, right? You're going to step to the next level. You're going to move it forward. I also want you to be strategic though about the decisions of the things you do not do, because it affects the way you function as a team, as an organization, as you communicate with your community around this event, right? Someone might be like, well, how come you didn't go full on, peer-to-peer campaign focus on this? And being able to say, because this particular year, this was our focus and this is why. It's the difference between, it seems like maybe we just don't have the capacity or we don't know what we're doing, as opposed to saying, like, we know who we are, we know what we want to accomplish, and this is how we're getting there this year. Next year might be different, but this is why we're not doing that. It also immediately frees you up from that feeling of, I should be doing all the things. Because again, you shouldn't, right? Do what you do well, and know why you're not doing the other things, why you might be staging them for later. So keep that in mind too, where things fit, where they're appropriate, and where, to be honest, they're not. Some of the best decisions I've made working at nonprofits and helping other nonprofits is saying, nope. That thing we've been doing, and it's been painful, and it has had very little value, but it sucked up most of my time. Let's stop doing it. When you did it, it was amazing how much more effective you could be when you focused on the other areas that were really sort of the right fit for you. All right. So now the importance of doing activities is not just the content, but it's process. So the first just like wide open question for everybody. How was that? What are some responses? Like, how was that activity for you?
Triggering. As we just did this last year.
Triggering, right? We say it and we laugh, but it's no joke, right? Anyone who's like really dug into change management, had to deal with projects, triggers is a very legitimate thing to have to think about with people. I mean, if you don't trust me, just go to your next staff meeting and just say, I'd like to propose a change, and just see what happens to the room, like instantly, right? Especially if you say, hey, we're gonna do a website redesign. We're gonna give more 24s on a new platform this year, and we gotta learn it, right? Most people in the room have a cringe and trigger type response. There's very few people that go, yes, I love a new database, right? So that's important to keep in mind for your own awareness, but also just as you're trying to, if you got to manage a project, you got to manage the people, and that's what's going to be happening for them, right? What else about the activity?
It's definitely a bargaining element to it. We're all nonprofit professionals. We all think that we can, go above and beyond any scope. So we're all like, oh, why can't we talk to this board member? That kind of thing. Like, we can do better than what this thing is showing us. So different things like that. Like, all of our obstacles were, why can't we tackle it a different way? Why do we have to give something up?
Right, so it's bargaining. Why do we have to give things up? Looking for different solutions. The experience of what you thought, knew, and understood at the start of the project versus as you went through, right? Most projects, for some reason, we create a scope and then we just like blast forward. The reality is most of us learn more about it as we go, and so we would make different decisions, right? Like this table up here, they're like, wait a second, some of these things seem similar. Perhaps we could trade, well, we don't really need that. We don't need both of these. Email sign up, lead capture, those are the same thing, right? So you build your knowledge, but again, at the beginning of the project, just looking at some scope, probably someone else gave you, like I did, right? I painted it like it was a gift. But you're like, wow, wait, we're wasting time here when we could be putting it here. We could be doing better by not paying money to build the same thing twice in the same website, right? What else?
I really felt like I was working with a nonprofit because I had to make decisions and I didn't have all the data. I didn't like the description of what these were.
Yep.
Because what lead capture means to one person is different than someone else.
Yep, or how different departments might use it. Like I run programs. I don't care about lead capture. I'm not trying to like, you sign up for the program, great, we're done.
But
But
even what lead capture means in this context, so like
Yep.
a sheet for the tables of what they mean, so we felt better.
yeah. So again, I know it's not 100% true, right? I did just throw a bunch of strangers in the middle of a project, but it's shocking, right? How often does that happen where you get pulled into a project? You're on a project team, lucky you. You're like, okay, this isn't really my team. I'm not quite sure how I fit. In particular, we had someone at your table who was like, this is like foreign language. This means nothing to me, right? And so it's super uncomfortable. And what that reinforces that oftentimes can happen on projects, and it's okay to step up and say, you know what, like, I am not the right team member for this. Like, not only is this not my area, like, I don't have the expertise to advise and contribute, like, maybe I should step out. It's trying to, like, it's totally okay. In fact, so many projects would be better off if right out of the gate, certain people were like, I don't feel comfortable being here, and I'm not gonna make any valuable contributions. It's like, awesome, that saves us from creating a bunch of weird tension later on where I'm like, how come you haven't done the thingy thing? And you're like, I don't know what the thingy thing is. And honestly, in my heart of hearts, I don't care about the thing. Right? So that was, who here felt uncomfortable at some point during this process? Right? It's by design. I didn't design this to be super smooth and easy because then I would be lying to you. Right? Not knowing what terms are. there were a lot of great questions asked. What does this mean? To be honest, I have run this before in a room and got the whole way through and nobody asked me what something meant. It was shocking. And so again, you end up with a website and it's like, well, we sunk a bunch of money into something that over the next year we realized we didn't need that. We don't need online petitions. I don't know why that was in there. Someone else thought it was cool, but we don't use them. Right? So we sink time, energy, and money into things that don't matter. More importantly, we burn up our people in stressful projects that aren't focused on what we need to be getting to, right? So one of the other things, right, is just, again, noticing who's there. To be honest, we have 2 folks who within the first round, they just stepped out. They're like, I'm done. I'm out of this project, right? And we've all seen that, right? I've sent you 7 emails asking about the thing. I mean, we had lunch together, but like, you just ghosted me on the project stuff. So it's not always bad. Sometimes it's just a chance to identify and be like, all right, cool. Let's just not have this person in here, right? So the other thing is the body language, right? Again, this is super ambiguous. People are like, well, is this for Give More 24? This is my organization? Again, that's left undefined because I want to see how you as a group will solve it. Some groups immediately will come together and they'll be like, let's take your organization. And we can use that as a filter to answer all these petitions. Who cares about petitions, right? Other ones come together to just create something. A lot of groups just float. And that's another common thing that happens, right? People don't define assumptions early on in the process. And so what do? You go through and like, nobody really advocates for anything because you're not totally clear on the goals or the intent. You don't want to be like the rude, bossy one. So what happens is everyone just floats through the mud for the next 6 months. And then at the end you go, oh, I don't like our new website. There's a lot of money, it's a lot of time, I don't even like it. Right? So again, expose you in a very short period of time to a lot of the common things. Every single one of the scenarios in there, I have run into those in projects. Every single one. Literally 2 days before launching a website and an executive director comes in and goes, doesn't look like the original scope. It's like, oh, I really wish someone on your team had been sharing some updates over the last 7 months because there's a lot of reasons that changed that were all to your benefit, but all right. So some of the tips and stuff is to help deal with a lot of these common occurrences and challenges that come up as you go through project. So if it was uncomfortable, it's because that's what project management is a lot of times, right? How do you manage the people, the expectations, the communications, all that. But you just survived a website redesign. Some of you, your second one in a year. So congratulations. All right, so again, knowing, right, I do a full day just on project management. You can get certificates. We're trying to cram a whole bunch to a real small period, try and keep it pretty focused on just your giving day stuff. So I want to talk about 3 key areas to really think about as you're coming in with your team and trying to manage stuff. The first one is expectations, right? And we don't always think this about projects, right? What do you think project looks like? Budget, timeline. Those are the 2 things, right? So one of the things I want you to think about, and of course, I had to do it. I had to bring this graphic back. Some of you have seen it the last couple of years, but same sort of thing, right? Success criteria. So a lot of times we like to gauge success of a project based on budget and timeline alone, right? And it's totally false, because again, you'll learn things along the way. You will change things along the way. I guarantee you will change things along the way. It's coming. We should just accept that as the norm instead of like, oh, that means failure because our scope changed. It was like scope creep, scope creep. It's like, no, we just got smarter. It's okay. Right? So when I say success criteria, it's the narrative. It's the story. Right? So you heard that a little bit this morning in the branding thing. What's your organization story? What's your story? What's your volunteer story? So what this is say we're into October, Give More 24 has happened, and you're talking with some of your colleagues or you're talking with friends and family, and they're like, how'd that event go? You go, it was a massive success because the narrative, the words, right? It's the way you describe it. So rarely would you say to somebody, it was a success because we had a 14.7% increase in new donors this year. right? That's data and that's nice and it's good for like staff reports and some other metrics we'll get into. But that feeling of success, that's different. It's a narrative and it ties more in with the heart than the head, right? Like they were talking, right? There's your data, there's your story. The heart and the head are the two parts. Because honestly, that narrative of success is what's going to be the feeling that sticks with people after. And so what's really important about this, and for thinking about that right from the onset, it ties into goals, it ties into metrics, but honestly, it's the umbrella that all those things live under. Is because what's absolutely critical in project management is that this is what you keep coming back to, right? For your website, criteria for success was we need to create a stronger engagement hub for our community. We keep saying we want people to do all these things, but they can't do it on our website. And so anyone who's not here at our in-person events is just getting completely left out, right? So when you're going through a project and someone goes, well, how come you swap lead capture forms for an interactive map? That's not in scope. You say, because our success criteria is more interaction. And we felt that this provided an opportunity for our community to interact and share their story and data better than this thing. And you'd be amazed at how comfortable people can be with change. And the reality is, because as soon as you've got everyone on the same page for what success looks like, everything else that comes after, you're already 80% of the way through buying. You just have to help them understand how that change and shift connected back to where everyone was trying to get to in the first place. Rather than, I don't know what that thing is that you just added, and now you have to try and sell me on the new thing that I don't know what it is and I don't understand. If you can set the phrase, you don't have to understand how this thing works. Understand that as a sort of tool and strategy for us, it will have this outcome and impact. Oh, which ties into the thing that you already bought into, right? You can't go back on that. The success criteria is already so closely tied with your mission and your values that, again, you don't feel like you're trying to get buy-in every week, because that is crushing, and it happens often, right? So being able to have that and have it documented, share it in meetings, and again, there have been times where I've had everybody sign off. Physically, you were going to sign this document that says this is our success criteria. Because you'd be surprised when you get down the line how people forget. Oh, did I say that in the meeting? Because I'm the one who advocated for it, but now I'm actually the biggest critic of it. And you're like, you brought it up. How can it be a big issue now? So one thing I developed years ago to help me deal with this is just this real simple thing called living scope. And what it is, it's just a Google Doc, and I'll make sure they have a link to it where it's a Google Doc. You can grab a copy, pull it down as a Word doc, whatever. So on top, I basically have bullet points that are like, here's our current scope. Like, this is our reality and what we're trying to accomplish. As we get those big items done, I just strike them through. I don't delete them. I want people to know what we've accomplished, but they can see it's sort of done. But the real crux of it is just these two simple tables. What got added, like why the change is there, the reason, approved by, and the date. The same thing for when things get dropped. It seems crazy, but again, I have saved probably hundreds of hours on projects by simply being able to answer an email and go, the reason it's different is because when we were testing that 2 months ago, we figured it doesn't work like we thought it was going to. So we scrapped it, you approved it on June 15th, that team meeting. Oh, okay, well if I said that then, I must have been super smart, and now I'm not gonna have issues with it. But being able to do this, because going back and trying to find this in email, in project management tools, a little easier but can still be tricky. Or the worst, right? A lot of it happened in some conversation. We were in some meeting, we were on a phone call, someone said something and we just went forward with it. And then I was like, oh, this was a major decision and I have no way of sort of documenting it. And now we've lost weeks undoing things that were actually usually a decision made by the person who's raising the issue. So again, real simple, but just taking, 1 minute to document some shift in what's in there, super helpful. A side benefit is that it actually helps you also document your learning, right? Like, oh, as we learn about the tools, but we also further developed our strategies, like this is why we made some of these shifts. Because that's where we wanted to go with it.
Then you can also attach those to your minutes so that in the future, people understand why the changes were made once you're gone.
Yeah, so link to it from like, standing team meetings. I've had these documents actually like live in, like if you're using a project management tool, they just link so like at any point, anybody, that executive director at any possible moment, they likely won't, but they could, and it was there for them to go and see why decisions are being made. Super helpful and remarkably easy and not a technological, right? Like you don't need fancy tools, just use with a Word doc, Google Doc. I'd say this has been probably one of the most helpful things I've done in project management over the years. Just to manage expectations in people, and to be honest, just squash conflicts in a very professional, non-personal sort of way. So managing communications, this is another big one. So I'm a big fan, there's a couple of different models out there in terms of roles. I like this model because the labels, they just more closely align with how we actually talk in nonprofits, right? Some of the other ones feel a little more like hardcore tech or sort of corporate in terms of their labels, right? So just mocha. So just the idea at the beginning of a project, like you identify these roles. So again, and you forgive me back here at this table who didn't want to be in on the project because you didn't feel like your spot right. So what might make sense though is that what happens is we all came to this project, we're all technically sort of same level, right? And that just doesn't make sense. Someone needs to be a manager. So a lot of times, like I'm a manager, I'll go to one of my colleagues on my team and I'll be like, so we need to do this project and I'm driving it because I'm the director. But you're you're the person who's actually going to see this thing going, but I'm the one who sort of like set it out. So they become the owner, right? They're the one that makes sure this thing is moving forward, staying on time, all that kind of stuff. Consulted. This is the one that gets most often skipped. Because I'll say, your input is valuable. So I'm going to make you come to every single weekly meeting and you're like, come on, I got things to do. So you get soured on the project super quick. Rather than saying, when we when we get to the design phase of something, like we have other people in our organization, like that's their superpower, right on. You should pull them in and get their input. I don't have a lot of feels about some of those things. Right, but when you want to talk about content, user experience interacting, okay, then I should come in and, so letting someone know out of the gate, we're going to do this project, I'm going to consult you on the parts that are relevant and important, but you don't have to be involved in all the other stuff. Make people feel valued, but not abused.
What do you need?
Right? So it's like, cool, so we're talking, you and I are going to have 2 one-hour meetings. I love this project. I'm all for it. Helper, this is nice from the beginning to sort of say, this person owns it, but like these are a couple of key people that are like, this person helps us make our graphics. This person knows how to make a quick video. So they're going to help with certain parts, but they're not in charge of owning this project, right? And then approver, because that might be different. A lot of times I'll say we need to do this project, but if ultimately it lives in a public-facing place, our marketing and our marketing team are the ones that get final sign-off. Because they're the gatekeepers for everything publicly facing, right? So just identifying these roles, because what this does is it then starts to answer those questions of who needs to know what, how often, and in what way makes the most sense, right?
So how often would you have the approver different from either the owner or the manager?
Honestly, a lot of times it just depends on like team size. If you're a small organization, one person might have multiple roles, and that might be fine. The manager might also be the approver. There are times where I create a project and I am manager, owner, and approver. But letting other people know that like you will be consulted when it's appropriate, and like you're gonna have to help me on a couple things so you can keep it in mind in terms of your workflow and calendar, like that can be helpful. It really varies, but it's totally okay for someone to have multiple roles. Yeah, we have 13.75 FTE in our organization. We're not big, we're not tiny. There's some groups that are 1 or 2 people, right? But just knowing this It just clears up a lot of stuff from the get-go. Trying to sort this out near the end is painful. And someone's wondering why they didn't get updates, but I'm supposed to like make a decision on this. So I don't even know what's happening. It puts people in sort of weird spots. So again, understanding your preferred methods. So this again, rather than, I don't want to like throw tools and say, this is how you should do it. The way you should do it is how your organization's actually going to work, right? Do people prefer to get their communication via email, in-person meetings, quick updates, instant message, you know, or like, you know, honestly, some printed out report. There's some people who are like, man, could you just like drop this thing on my desk and I'll read it when I get a chance? So understanding how your organization works, but also starting to think about the appropriate format too, right? If it's a major decision, you might want that documented somewhere. So even if you shared it in a meeting, again, put it in the living scope. Drop it in some agenda minutes real quick, just so that major decisions and things are captured. But also, if I've got one question, it's like a sentence long, please don't send it to me in an email. Email is a dark, dark place for me. There's so many things going on in there and it gets so chaotic. If you have that one thing, like I might not get to it until tomorrow, whereas we use instant message a lot. It's like, if it's a quick question, I can easily answer that and like hop back into the flow, whatever I was working on. If it's an email, it means it's going to be chunked into how I deal with email, because I go into that place probably twice a day for a set period of time. And then when I'm not in there, boom, I gotta close that beast. Otherwise I don't get anything done, right? So just thinking about, you know, with those roles and how you might do your communication, and then trying to match that up again with when it makes sense. Again, like a killer. Everybody on the project has to be here every week for a 1 hour meeting. No, maybe there should be an update sent out once a week and everyone comes together maybe once a month. Or we just come together if we're like at a major milestone point in the project and decisions need to be made. If we're just grinding and working for the next 4 weeks, let people do other things with their time. Same thing, right? Like funders or stakeholders, right? Like you might just let them know, hey, we went from design, we're moving into development. I want you to know where we're at with the process. You could care less what that means in terms of nitty-gritty details, so I'm not going to bore you with it. But I want you to know that we're on track. We're 1 week behind, but we have ideas for where we might even make it up. So again, because we usually approach this as just a blast approach. Everybody, all the information, all the time. That's where you burn out your project team members within like weeks of getting into anything. So last area is managing timelines. Again, this can be sort of tricky. We could go into this a lot. So one thing is just a deliverables audit, right? So I say that it sounds like a heavy term, but there's a reason I put it on a postit note, because it might simply be that. Just knowing ahead of time, right? Let's think through now all the things we're going to need, rather than sort of like trying to figure that out on the fly as we're cruising along. That's where things get forgotten, and honestly, that's where things suddenly get crunched. And you'll see the thing about, you know, when we talk about working back from milestones, why it's important to know these things in advance. So one of the big things is like, what does it take to get a decision made in your organization? Say I had a graphic that was going to go into a newsletter. How long would the process take from creation to review to approval? Anybody, quick example. Would that take a day? Are you in a situation where you're like, all of those steps are me? I could actually probably get that done in 2 hours. Is there anyone who's like, well, someone has to create it, but it's someone else who then reviews and approves, and then it, right? So you can see pretty quickly how it's like dropping a new banner into a newsletter. That could be a week. Heaven forbid someone's on vacation, that's a decision maker, and now it takes us 2.5 weeks to get final approval to put a graphic in our newsletter, right? So understanding what it takes to make a decision and on the different elements and parts of the process, and again, just help you work things backwards and realistically set it. So this is again why people go, wow, it's going to take 6 months to do this website redesign. And you're like, okay, it typically takes us a week to make a decision. roughly estimating we'll make 50 decisions in this project. Okay, no, I can start to see how timelines are longer than we expect. So just an example, right? Yeah, we want to make an event flyer because part of Get More 24 is an in-person event. We're going to do something down on the waterfront at the fort. It's going to be awesome. We want to have this nice print piece. All right, I like technology, but I understand things exist offline too. They're actually super valuable. So great, event flyer, let's have that thing. The event is obviously Get More 24. Let's have it ready by September 1st. Great. Man, it is July. We got tons of time. Except, well, again, I unpack what the minor milestones are. All of a sudden you can see like, okay, getting to that flyer, it's not even just about internal. Are we gonna go to an external printer for that? Is there someone else we're working with? Is the place we're working with possibly also serving 149 other organizations with the same event deadline? Oh, okay, maybe we should call them and figure out what their deadlines are. We have to do a lot of this. A lot of our deadlines get set because this is what the printer told us, right? For a major conference event, doing signs. 1 year, we just got to get it to them 2 weeks ahead of time. Next year, next vendor, they got to have it 7 weeks ahead of time. Like, we just added almost 2 months to our process to get signs ready, right? So just walking that stuff back so that you can actually be aware of each of the steps. And again, it's not always terribly long. If you're the only one doing all of this, it might take you a day to get to the first 6 steps. If it's just you and you're just focused on that for a day. If this goes through 3 people though, you could easily be at 2 weeks. So just again, just to be aware and think about tendencies. This can't be done unless someone else does this first. Because what you find all the time in projects is you're saying, hey, I kind of need you to get that done. See, you're a little late. The little thing turned red in the project management tool. You missed your deadline. I know, and I'm busy. I'll try and get to it. 4 days later, hey, nonprofit person being super friendly. I'm just going to give this a little nudge. Could you please get to it? And what they don't understand is that there are 5 other steps that these people are available to work on, but they can't because this one thing's holding them up. So it's amazing how often you can say, look, right now you're creating a roadblock. Maybe that information will help you prioritize and you will get to this thing on Monday rather than the cleanup Friday, because everyone else can then move forward. There's one roadblock. But again, sometimes in the interest of being polite, you know, everybody's busy, but it's just helpful information because we're all trying to prioritize. And I'll do this all the time. Something I thought I'd do on Thursday, I will get done first thing Monday morning because of information other people share. I can't do my thing unless you just clear this, and it will probably only take you 20 minutes. It's amazing how the 20-minute task, relatively small, I'll just keep moving those on my calendar. Shove it back, show a good time tomorrow. But again, I'm holding up people. So the other one, vacation planning. This is a real simple tip. And it's amazing how often it's missed, right? But you kick off a project, you're gonna do some work, working towards Get More 24. Anybody here have a vacation sometime this summer before the event? Right, your very first meeting, taking 2 seconds to go, all right, anybody have vacations planned out of office? Be amazed how often I've jumped into a project and someone's been like, look, we got a real priority on this. We need to really focus and get this thing done in the next 3 months. You'd be like, right on. Any planned out of office stuff? I'm actually going on maternity leave next in about 3 weeks. You're like, cool, and you're the decision maker and the approver, right? So you say, look, let's just be reasonable. Why don't we just start this project when it fits with the rest of your context? It will be more successful rather than out of the gate we know. Or same thing, I'll be on, you know, and the guy will be like, oh, this is super important. Oh, by the way, I'm super excited for my 3-week vacation. We're gonna go and be gone and be like, the 3 weeks was the design phase. So again, let's just stop it, or let's know there's a hole, and right out of the gate, you say, great, we're just gonna bump all of our timelines now, rather than feeling like we just miss every single one and we're always playing catch up. Probably 60% of the time, there's some out of office, leave, hiding, lurking in the shadows that comes out simply when you ask. So again, knowing our time, I'm happy to jump on phone calls and even get into nerdy levels on these tools with you, but I just want to highlight some examples of sort of where you can go. Because again, there's a real compact time frame to talk about project management. It sounds silly, but I want to demonstrate. I'm not saying everyone has to jump into some crazy tool. Simply using some Post-it notes. I actually like Post-it notes because you can use different colored ones to highlight like items that have real strong dependencies on other items. You can move them around very easily. They're on a wall, they're visible, they have a physical presence. Because honestly, most everything I do is in my laptop, especially as a remote employee, right? Like my office is in my, I work out of my bedroom on a rolling standing desk. It's about this big, right? I don't put a lot of things on my walls. So if I'm not in that tab, it has very little visibility. So this can be a great trick, just to get stuff up on the wall, and there's nothing feels better. It's like, oh yeah, that thing's done. It's done, right? It's gratifying. So again, use what works and it will be useful. I'm not a fan of throwing people into tools because for some reason technology is supposed to be, like sophisticated technology is better. Systems that work. Google Docs, very simple, free, but I mean, for our organization, we rely heavily on these just because the ability to like real-time collaborate, comments, link to these things in between. Super helpful. Google spreadsheets, you can do some amazing dashboards and things with just a few formulas. And again, access any type of machine, all that kind of stuff. Super helpful. Editorial calendars. Obviously, this is a blip. To be honest, I can spend 2 hours just on editorial calendars. So basically what these are is it becomes one central place for you to just be able to keep an eye on the big picture and be like, here's when social posts are happening. Here's where our email falls in the mix. Here's when we're going to be changing the homepage on our website. Here's when that newsletter goes out. So being able to see all those things, because again, sometimes they happen across different people, different departments, and it's pretty amazing. Sometimes you'll pop in and you'll be like, wait a second, we're about to blast everybody on every channel in our entire community on Thursday. Maybe we should stagger that. Maybe this email should go a few days earlier. We should switch up what we're doing with our socials to lead up to, you know, just becoming aware. Also, this helps you sort of walk back those minor milestones. I'll do this all the time, be like, I totally have the capacity to do it that week, except the fact that I'm traveling up to Portland to run 2 trainings. So normally it'd be fine, but because of these other things happening in my world, like I got to bump that to next week. So again, if you're interested, you can send me an email and I can send you links to all kinds of cool resources and free downloadable templates and all that kind of stuff. I don't just blast them out here because it's super overwhelming, to be honest, because you can get deep into it. But there's just a lot of power in knowing where things are happening when and how they overlap. Casual PM, right? So for those that haven't heard of it, what I like about this is it's sort of like a project management tool that's visual, and it's like the light duty project management. What I really like is the visual aspect, right? I can clearly look at this and see where my dependencies fall. I can't do this thing until this thing that has an arrow pointing to it is accomplished. These two things could totally run in parallel. So if this is being held up, it absolutely doesn't stop the drafting of our email copy because we don't have the graphic yet. They obviously need to come together, but I can write that email copy before the graphic gets here, right? So it's just another tool that I think can be real helpful to check out. And then again, here's the more robust. Again, you can get super hectic. We use Asana as an absolute hub in our organization. Basecamp is another big one. There's a couple of tools. And so again, if you're interested, you can send me an email. I'm happy to send you resources. I'm also happy just to jump on like a quick 30-minute call. Because the big difference is like, you can go asana.com and open it up and go, oh, well, they can do a ton of things, but what do I do with all these things? And so a lot of times I can just give like, here's my 3 favorite things, or my 3 favorite tips to actually make Asana particularly useful, right? So like in Asana, one of the things that's always a challenge is, well, I have all these different projects, right? I'm juggling multiple things. How do I keep track of the main things in there? So in Asana, you can do tags. So what it means is I have like a different tasks and different projects, and I just tag them as a milestone. It gives me one other spot where I can come together and I can just basically see all my sort of major deadlines and milestones across all my projects. So I can start to see, oh man, I don't want everything piling up in that last week in September. So we got to start moving some stuff around. So again, a number of tricks and things like that. As we're heading towards our break here, biggest takeaways, it's about managing expectations, right? We often think project management is about nullifying risk, nullifying change, and as soon as it happens, somehow it's a failure. It's not. Things will change, things will shift. The most important thing, though, is the difference of a missed deadline. If I know now that I unexpectedly had to step out of the office for a week, 2 weeks, some family medical emergency or something, right? Right now, we can say, cool, you know what? Every deadline that comes after this needs to be bumped to 2 weeks. If you say that ahead of time, most people go, oh, okay, yeah, great. It actually freed up some time and I can adjust my schedule. Problem is, when you hit a deadline and the day after you go, oh yeah, so we're behind deadline, I think it was maybe because of these reasons. So now people are coming from a defensive spot of feeling like, oh, so we're failing? So we're scrambling to overcome failure. As opposed to like, look, we knew a month ago we weren't hitting this deadline. So again, just letting people know beforehand, it feels calm, it feels managed and strategic. After the fact, feels rough. It puts everyone in a weird spot. So again, you're tying it back to that. What did we mean when we said success? Didn't necessarily mean we had to have petitions on the site. Is our website more interactive than it was before? All right, however that interaction looks, right? We made that success. We moved it forward. And the boundaries are good. Like we talked about in the little quote up front, being super intentional about these are the things we are going to do, and these are the things we are not going to do. I'll guarantee some of you will get back to your organizations, someone will catch wind that there's this new peer-to-peer aspect that's possible on the platform. And they'll say, I was reading this blog. This is peer-to-peer is awesome. Go do that thing this year. And it's important to be able to say, great, let's do it, let's focus there, yes. Or also saying, no, maybe next year, but so far this year, this is our focus, and these are our goals. So that's where we're going to go. This is why we're not going there. Being able to say no just helps keep you sane. You say yes or maybe or we'll figure it out because we're nonprofits. We'll do it, right? It will crush you. You'll burn out. To be honest, like you may end up looking for a new job before you may get to give more 24, and that does not help our community, right? Self-care is not this like luxury. It is actually strategic. It's about sustainability within your organization. You burn out, you're not helping anybody, right? Saying no and protecting yourself and your project and success is actually a very strategic thing to do. And you will actually create more good in the world by excelling in these areas instead of just watering down everything, right? You tell Ash said I could say no. Leave alone on that thing. All right. So again, like I said, I'm super like our mission is to help you. So again, sending you an email to be like, hey, you got any tips on a couple of tools? Like I've spent hours in the Google, find out these tools are great, and these ones like they sucked, they were terrible. Don't waste your time. Or if you're using that tool, here's maybe 3 tips I can give you to make it more useful. Right, so use me as a resource to be able to share that kind of stuff, or connect you up with research and data that maybe you need to help make the case to executive directors and things like that. Thanks for sharing your time. We'll have a little break and then you will hear from me again.